on the road in my 66 Fairlane Gasser, and it's got a straight axle, but forever it just hasn't looked the part. The wheels were wrong, it didn't have paint that looked right for the 60. Today we're gonna solve that. We're gonna metal flake the hood, put better wheels on it, and put the name down the side. Say hello to the toxic relationship.
What's up guys, I'm Jeremy, welcome back to Catfish Motorsports. Today, we're gonna try to give my 66 Fairlane Gasser here a little bit of a makeover. So this car is being prepped for drag week. Whether it's gonna be able to make that next year or the year after, I don't know. It still needs a cage and a lot of other expensive items. But unlike other categories, the Gasser category actually has to pass an eye test too. You can't just kind of go by the rule book and say, well, I'm within the year range, within the engine range and whatever else. It does have to look right. And this one, while we're getting there, still has some telltale issues that would probably get us disqualified from the class. Notably, these weld wheels. While these might look right at home on a different vehicle, they are an absolute eyesore on this car. Enter step one of the makeover. I've got a set of 15x8 and 15x4 bigs and littles tri-rib wheels. Now, these are a little bit unorthodox too, just like having kind of a later model of 66, well within the year range. These are a little bit later too, but they were still released in the 60s. And hey, I like Tri-5s as much as the next guy and early Novas and slotted mags, but we're trying to stand out here a little bit. So we're gonna be a little bit different. But I do not like the polished look of these. Now these are used, I bought these off Marketplace, but we're gonna scuff these up and we're going to apply some metal flake. Along with that, we're also going to be metal flaking the hood, which has already been removed. This has a big custom 5-inch teardrop hood that was already in primer. So we're going to metal flake the wheels, the hood, and the cowl, which I recently had sandblasted. Now before we get to that, I've already got the hood off. We're going to spray the underside of that because the paint I'm going to be using is a little bit old and I want to make sure it's still good. So we're going to spray the underside of the hood first, see if that sticks and lays out like it should. Then we'll get to laying the metal flake down. Speaking of that paint, now, hey, I'm not necessarily telling you to do this. Like I said, this is old paint. It's been sitting on my shelf. I bought it for a different project and never got used. But hey, we're all about trying to save money and doing some of the kind of same cost-cutting things that you guys would be doing in your home garage. So that's what we're doing here. This is Boulevard Black Eastwood single-stage urethane. Now, normally when I'm spraying flake, I would use a base coat. So you would go primer, black base, followed by your flake in a clear binder, and then 2K clear coat over the top of all of that. This is single stage, so this does have some shine to it, but I just don't want to waste it. It's been sitting around. I think it should still work. It's been sealed the whole time. You can still see it's got the plastic ring on top. So we're gonna mix this up, and I don't think the single stage aspect of it should really affect our ability to lay clear over the top of it. But we're gonna find out. If it goes wrong, you'll find it out here first. You won't make this mistake yourself. I've also got some epoxy primer that we'll be spraying over the top of the hood. On the bottom of the hood that I care about less, I've got this turbo can of just normal automotive primer. I don't recommend you guys using rattle cans, especially primer, but it's the underside of the hood. I just don't care that much. And I don't know that I have enough of this to do everything else I want to do. So we're gonna do the underside of the hood with a rattle can, and it should still be fine. If it flakes off a little bit under the hood, I don't care that much. Let's get started. I'm also going to apologize in advance. I know this light is going to wash out the camera a little bit. Can't really do much about that. Now, some of you might ask, hey, how are you going to keep dirt out of this? And to an extent, we're not. You know, I have swept up the floor. When we spray the top side that I care about more, we'll probably take some extra steps to wet the ground a little bit around us. But again, in the spirit of DIY, I don't have a paint booth. We're just gonna get her done. And then when it gets a little bit of dirt in it, we'll sand it out later as part of the process. I've actually never used one of these turbo cans before, so this is gonna be a little bit of an adventure. So I bought this hood at auction, and the company had gone out of business, so I don't know a ton about it other than it's a one-off piece. I have scuffed this, and this looks bare, but it's not. It does have some sort of coating over it, which if it was all the white primer, I probably wouldn't even bother with this. But because I don't know what this is, we're gonna spray some primer over it. We're just gonna cover the whole underside of the hood so we have a uniform color that we're spraying over. Already got a bug in there. Get out of there. All right, here we go. Now I didn't get great coverage there, partly because I didn't know what to expect out of this can. But the can does say try to aim for like 50% coverage on your first pass. Okay, we'll come back out, give that another coat or two till we have uniform coverage. Try to learn how to use this turbo can a little bit better, and then we'll spray the real color on it with a real gun. I have been steady stirring this for a hot minute because all the solids had settled to the bottom, but I think we've got her good and stirred now. I gotta tell you too, this turbo can, I feel kind of medium about it. The turbo part is no joke though. You go through that big can fast. We're gonna be spraying this out of my Porphis 717. I've actually only got to use this like once on a small project, so I'm sort of excited about this. This is a split tip gun. It helps atomization, so should spray out really nicely. This is the 1.4 tip. I've also got some Harbor Freight, 3M PPS 1.0 knockoff cups that we're going to use here, disposable cups. And I think the hood is probably just going to take like one full liner. So we're going to mix this up. It might take more than this, but we're going to mix up, basically this is a pint at a 3-to-1, and because it's old, we're going to reduce it a little bit. And hopefully she sprays out nice and pretty. I've been told when you're using old paint like this, as long as you don't let it freeze, it's usually okay. And it's actually the activator apparently that goes bad. I'm not an expert. I have no idea how accurate that is. Just things that I've read. All right, so there we go. 3-to-1 mix, reduced 10%. I kind of wish I would have recorded it. I purposely didn't record it because it's always a mess. But I just made the best tape paint funnel I've ever made in my life. Usually I get paint everywhere when I do that. I managed to not make a giant mess this time, which I'm pretty happy about. We're gonna mix this, put it in the gun. I've already kind of somewhat cleaned it out. And then we're just gonna go over and spray. I'm gonna put you guys in fast forward with some music or something because you guys don't want to listen to that fan run. Doing this at the back of the garage because I don't want to empty the garage of all my cars and stuff. Now with these Harbor Freight PPS setups, they've got a screen in them, which for this part is great because I'm not going to bother straining it because it's got a screen anyway. When you are spraying your flake later, you have to remember to cut this out. And these do have mixing lines on them. I don't trust them and I think they're more difficult to read, so I mix it in separate cups. Hopefully I didn't get any stray sparkles in there from spraying metal flake with this at an earlier date. Well, in theory, today's the day we're going to try and spray this stuff. Problem, my epoxy primer is real thick. All the solids were down at the bottom and it turned to sludge. I've been stirring the hell out of it for like 30 minutes now. I got it about as good as it's going to get. I'm going to spray it on the cowl first and see how that goes. If it is just spitting out, then we'll just pause this whole operation before we cover the whole hood in something that we might just have to sand off. I spent hours scuffing and masking these wheels, and if you offered me a bullet in the head or to sand and mask stuff, I wouldn't dismiss the bullet overly quickly. I really hate doing that. I don't mind painting. God, I hate sanding and masking. But we got it done. Notice this is inside just for space issues and make sure my hose reaches, but everything else we're gonna do outside because flake gets everywhere. Now it's gonna be like able to rub off. So if you get it on something, you just blow it off, wipe it off. It's not that big of a deal. But I'm going to do this outside, both to prove that, hey, you can do this outside and to keep from bedazzling my whole garage. Boy, this stuff is just thick. Now we're going to thin it out anyway. It's been a long time since I've used epoxy, like a year when I did this. I don't remember if that's what it looks like anyway. And obviously we're going to 1-to-1 it with the catalyst, and then we're going to thin it 20% because we're actually using this as a sealer. I'm not using this like you would normally with a primer where you're going to spray it on and sand it down. We're going to spray 1-2 coats max, reduced, and then spray our base coat and all that right on top of it. I don't know, we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and mix this up, and we'll, like I said, we'll start with a small piece. We'll start with the cowl. This is new. It wasn't sitting on my shelf forever, a few months, but I guess it could have sat on the shop shelf for a long time before I purchased it. And I purchased it at a car show from a guy who was selling a bunch of paint supplies, like a professional business, but still, unfortunately, not somewhere that I can just email and be like, hey, can I get a new quart of this? So if it doesn't work, I'm probably out the money. Well, that thinned out quite a bit there. Hopefully it works. I really don't want to have to buy more stuff and do this over again. Epoxy's not crazy expensive, but we're all set up here. We're ready to go. Like, I don't want to have to do this over, and it's only going to get hotter. It's like 80 degrees today. It's June. We're running out of time to paint in decent weather. All right, let's give it a shot. Put a new pair of gloves on. I've already wiped all this down with glass cleaner, but I am going to wipe down at least the hood with a real wax and grease paint prep. Be careful if you've used spray paint, like spray primer, because it's been my experience that this stuff does not agree with rattle can materials. So just keep that in mind. You might end up with some sort of delamination if you do that. We're about to start spraying. I don't know if you can see it, I did wet the ground here a little bit. You'll see a lot of DIYers say that, and it does help keep dirt and dust from coming up. You do have to be careful with this though, especially if you wet your floors inside, because if it's already a touch too humid, which it definitely is today, and you cover your garage floors in water, you might get to the point where it's so humid your paint doesn't want to do what it's supposed to do. Well, for better or worse, here we go. We're going to spray it on the cowl first, and if that goes well, move on to the hood and wheels. Primer down. It is a little tiger stripey, which is probably a combination of me not overlapping enough and going too fast. So we'll try to be more careful with that with our base coat. We're gonna let this flash off a little bit. I'm gonna clean my gun, and then we're gonna spray the exact same Eastwood urethane that we sprayed yesterday. Then we'll get to the flake. It's supposed to rain in like 4 hours, so I kind of got a boogie here. There's a hair right there, and there's the culprit. I don't know how well this is going to show up, but there's little pinholes in here where the actual scoop was grafted onto the hood, and I bet those are gone when we spray the flake. Welcome back, boys and girls. I have been in hydrating and letting this paint flash off. Everything is black. It does have some peel in it. I don't know if that is me not being very good at this, or if it's hot and humid outside, whatever. Who knows? Don't really care. We're about to texturize the shit out of it anyway with all this metal flake, so it doesn't really matter that much to me. One note on the Porphis gun, you know, these split tip guns famously aren't as fast as non-split tips, and also famously don't like as much air pressure. This is my Eastwood gun that we're going to spray our flake with because it has a bigger tip, and I'm used to running this at like 28, 29 PSI with the trigger depressed, and I was doing this less at like 25, and it was eye-shaped, the pattern. So it was heavy on the ends and thin in the middle, and it was leading to a lot of tiger striping from me. I turned the air down to like 19 PSI with the trigger to press, and that helped. If you buy one of these guns, and I know the internet loves these, and I haven't got to use this much, but so far it is nice, just know that it might require less pressure than you're used to spraying to get the pattern right. So this is my old beat up Eastwood Concourse 2. It's been a good gun. This might be one of the last paint jobs with it. It's been dropped bad a couple of times, as you can see, but it has a 1.7 tip, which is about the ragged edge for the flake we're gonna spray today. I would like to get another one of the 1.9 or even a little bit bigger to spray bigger flake with, but we're gonna let her ride one more time. Flake. We are spraying Lucky Penny by Flake or Die. I love these guys. There's actually a lot of really cool companies, Tropical Glitz, Limeline, that do affordable priced DIY metal flake stuff, and they have a lot of, especially Limeline has a ton of good tutorials. But I've really come to buy most of my actual flake from these guys, simply because Matt from Flake or Die over there, as far as I know, he's the owner, but they're super responsive to email, and when I've had questions, they respond like that day usually and are very helpful. And for an amateur like me, that goes a long way. You know, if you're willing to answer my dumbass questions, you know, you earn yourself a customer. And they're pretty affordable. Each one of these little packets is 12 bucks and you get over $30, shipping's free. So pretty cool. But this is Lucky Penny, and I am spraying 3 different sizes that I've got mixed together about 1 to 1 to 1. So we've got 0.015, which is big stuff, 0.008, and then little bitty 0.004. And this is a 1.7 tip. That's about as big as you're gonna be able to get away with a 1.7. But I've sprayed this size before out of that, so I know it'll work. Now, as far as mix ratios, honestly, a lot of times you watch guys spray flake, they're just gonna dump it into their clear binder and then just look at it and see where they like it. I have found that for a pint of sprayable clear binder, we're not using 2K clear, we're using a clear base coat. I'm sorry, it's hot. For 1 pint, 16 ounces, you want somewhere about 1 ounce in weight, 28 grams of flake. A little bit more, a little bit less, but somewhere in that range. So I've got 2 ounces mixed up here of my special blend with multiple sizes, and we're gonna put about half of this into a pint and then get to spraying, and we'll probably have to mix up a little bit more. The reason for the multiple sizes is it gives it depth. If you just spray one size, don't get me wrong, it's still gonna look cool, especially if it's big, heavy flake, but when you have multiple sizes, it looks deeper, it just gives it depth. A lot of times if you buy a custom blend, it's going to come in multiple sizes. Like the Limeline flake that you buy in a packet and you just dump a whole packet in a pint, that has 0.008 and 0.004, and then we added a little bit bigger boy stuff too. This is important when you're spraying your flake too. If you're using these handy disposable cup systems from Harbor Freight or wherever else, if they've got a screen in them, you have to cut the screen out. Otherwise, the flake is going to get filtered by your screen. So take a razor blade, cut that out. For my clear base coat, color binder, whatever you want to call it, I'm using Speedo Coat Color Blender. It is part number SMR 3500. And then it's a 1-to-1 mix with the urethane reducer. I try to stick brand to brand, but you can use any reducer really. This is about $100 for a gallon, and this is about $40 for the gallon. And I buy them both like that because then it takes me forever to go through this, because mostly I spray little projects. Like a project this big is rare for me, so I buy this stuff and it lasts quite a while. The reason I chose this copper mix, the Lucky Penny, is I needed something that was gonna look good with the maroon that's on the car now, but I'm probably gonna paint this car eventually, and I don't wanna have to repaint the hood and wheels and everything, so I wanted something that's gonna look good with my planned colors as well. Now I go back and forth between green and black. I really like green, but there's so many green gassers, so I've kind of been on black lately, but who knows how long it's gonna take me to get to that too. So it needs to look good with all 3 of those options. Copper looks good with both black, green, and this dark red that's on this now. You know, think of it like the Washington football team colors, USC Trojans. All right, we're gonna dump about half of this in here. Where are we at so I can see what half is? All right. I think that's about half. Oh, look at that, that looks cool. That looks cool. We might need more flake. See, the way you tell how much is on there, because what it looks like on the stick is more or less what it's going to look like when you spray it. And you can spray less flake and just have more coats to get the same coverage, but I would rather have fewer coats, save on material here. Man, that looks cool. But yeah, we're definitely going to go heavier here. We might just put the full 2 ounces in this. Call her a day. Yeah, we're going to do that. All the sparkles. Speaking of all the sparkles, you're going to get it everywhere. Wear old shoes, because you are going to bedazzle the piss out of your shoes. It's also while we're spraying outside. I'd rather bedazzle my driveway than my garage, because I've bedazzled my garage before. My dogs still have stripper sparkles all over them when they come in the garage and then leave. Oh, look at that. That's a lot more coverage there. Okay, let's put this in and then spray it. And I don't know if this is advised, but it's the way I do it, especially when you have thick flake like this. When you're in between coats, I like to store my gun upside down. Now, this only works if you have one of these style. If you have a thinted top, this isn't going to work. But I have found that in between coats with heavy flake, all of your flake will settle down into the gun and actually clog it up. Whereas if you let it settle at the top of the cup when it's laying down, you can just shake it up real good and you'll be fine. So that's just a personal tech tip. Said it wasn't that hot. It's still pretty hot. The wrap on the flake, there is bronze bedazzling everywhere. It came out pretty good. The wheels look amazing. The hood, there's a lot of dry flake on the hood, which I guess you just imagine it's a big flat surface. There's less on the wheels and less on the cowl, but we got pretty good coverage overall. I used a different direction every time we went. I did 3 coats overall. We went side to side, front to back, and then the last one I actually did diagonal to try to prevent tiger striping, because if you're tiger striping, it'll show up a lot with flake. So remember, this is a clear base that our flake's in, so it's not going to shine on its own. Now, it looks kind of shiny because it has the metallic in there, but we have to put a 2K clear over this for it to really pop. We're going to lay that on real thick on the hood because of all this dry flake. We want to be able to sand all that down. So the hood's going to get probably 3 good coats of 2K clear. The cowl is, we don't have to be as thick with that, and then the same with the wheels. The wheels, I'm not going to sand at all. The wheels are going to get 2K unmasked, and then they're just done. The cowl, and especially the hood, are going to sit for a week. Then we're going to come back. We'll scuff the cowl. The hood is going to get like 600 grit, and then it's going to get a little bit of graphics. We're going to do like a 429 logo, and then it'll get another coat of clear over top of it once it's nice and flat. All right, what do you say? Let's do it one more time. We're going back to the 717 for the clear coat. I was watching a couple videos on that particular gun while I was inside drinking some water, and it said the trick to that gun, because it is slow and it's a split tip, slow and a split tip, is to use like a really tight overlap, like 75-80%, which I was probably more like 50. We turn the pressure down, and we're gonna try like a much tighter overlap and see how that goes. Really, I'm hoping it doesn't rain on me.
See you
What is up, boys and girls? It is about a week later, 8 days to be exact, and it is unfortunately sanding time. You see, I've already kind of started sanding this side just because I wanted to give you an idea of how much like peel there was in this. Now, I had quite a bit of orange peel in this. I think it was largely in the base coat in the first couple of coats of clear. And there's numerous reasons for that. Number one, we were painting outside. I told you it was already a touch too humid anyway. Anytime you're spraying heavy flake like this, you're gonna have texture. So while you definitely could have taken this, I mean, look at this side. You could take this and throw it on a car and it'll look cool. Don't get me wrong, it's gonna look cool, but there is texture to it. So the middle ground, like the bare minimum that I would do, I wouldn't throw it on like this. What you could do is just take like some 2000 grit and then some 3000 grit Trizac just to knock down those flakes that we showed you that were standing up and any bugs or anything like that that got in it. You'll knock that stuff out of there and then polish it. And will it be perfect? No, but it'll look plenty cool. So that's kind of the least resistance path that I would take. Because I am going to throw some graphics on this, not much. I am kind of undecided what I'm going to do. We're not doing like a crazy lowrider pattern or anything, but we're definitely going to put 429 CI on the side. But moral of the story, because we are going to do some graphics, we're going to put another coat of clear over the top of this anyway. So we're going to go ahead and sand out most of the texture in this, and then we'll put clear over the top, and we'll have to do very little to that. To be completely honest, I told you there's a ton of peel in this. I'm probably not going to get out all the peel. You can tell me it's because I'm lazy. That's fine. But I just don't care that much. So I'm just going to get this pretty good, do my graphic. Then we'll put another coat or two of clear over it. Then we'll do that 2000, 3000 grit trick and polish, and we'll be golden. Now, if you did get this dead flat and then throw another coat of clear over that, I believe the cool kids call that flow coating. Point of that being you get this thing straight glassed out and then spray that extra coat of clear over, and then you shouldn't have to do anything with that. You might not even need to polish it, and it'll be glass. The problem for me with that is, again, we're spraying either outside or in a garage. We're not in a paint booth. It's probably gonna get a little dust and debris in it, so we're gonna have to sand a little bit of that anyway. So I'm not worried about getting this thing dead perfect. We're just gonna get it 90% of the way there, do our graphics, then we'll put another coat on. For reference, just before I get started, I'm gonna put you guys in fast forward, because God, I hate sanding. You don't want to hear all the cuss words that are going to come out of me. But we've got our big kid blocks here. You don't need that. You can just buy, you could buy whatever, Temu. I do like these. These are nice. I need to get more of the Velcro sandpaper. I really like that. Some people say you don't get as flat, but I told you I'm not getting it that flat anyway, so I don't really care. This is convenient. So I've got 600 grit on here, 600 grit on here. We're knocking all this texture out. I actually have an interface pad on this right now because I think that gives you a touch more room for error when you're getting into situations like this and your curves, because this pad will give a little bit rather than just digging in and then you go all the way down to primer and you're just in trouble at that point. I might take this off for the big flat areas on this side because it will cut a little bit quicker without the interface pad on, but that's why you see that pad in between there. I'm not telling you there's right or wrong way to do that, and honestly, if you watch videos from 10 different for real work for a living bodymen, you'll get 10 different answers. So you don't got to listen to me. Pick whoever you want to and listen to and do that. I'm just showing you this is the way I'm going to do it, and we'll see what the result is at the end. If you were doing the flow coat thing, I would tell you to do the whole thing by hand. Don't bother with a DA. Do the whole thing by hand, get it as flat as you possibly can with a block, and then do your flow coat and be done with it. Remember, if you are a garage enthusiast doing this stuff, you've never done it before, it's just paint. Worst case scenario, something goes dramatically wrong, you just sand it down and repaint it. Don't let it stop you from having fun. So I'm gonna put you guys in fast forward. We're gonna sand this stuff out. We're gonna get most of the peel out, and then we'll start playing around the graphics. Well, that sucked. And turns out it's not perfect, so we're gonna do the whole thing over again. I'm totally kidding. I would rather take a bath with a toaster than do all that again. God, I hate sanding. Anyway, we're gonna wipe this all down with some glass cleaner. I'm sure you're gonna see as it dries that it is not perfect. We didn't get all the texture out, but we got most of it out, and that's good enough for me. I'm a statistics guy, so I'm kind of good enough with, you know, one standard deviation from perfect. That's fine with me. We're gonna wipe this thing down, go in, mess around in the computer with some graphics, and get my Cricut to cut out some stencils. Can you still see some orange peel? Absolutely. Do I care? Not even a little bit. The teardrop was actually the hardest thing to get flat. And this is a word of warning to you guys to recalibrate expectations. When you buy a like as molded fiberglass part, it's not going to be flawless. They have a kind of bad reputation for not fitting well. And this is not dead flat, which obviously you can't see. Like when you just paint this, like unless you're bending around looking at the light, you're not going to be able to see. But when I've got a flat block on it, I can see that there's parts of it that are depressed. So if you are a perfect guy, expect to have to put some filler and expect to have to maybe shave some edges as they're maybe too wide for parts. So just keep that in mind. All right, next step here, we're gonna do a little bit of gold leaf or copper leaf in this case. I have taped out here 429 CI, just kind of a traditional look, nothing crazy. I'm still kind of undecided if I'm gonna put anything on the top or not. We're gonna do this on both sides. This one's already down. I'm gonna show you real quick how I did this. This is utilizing a Cricut. If you or your wife or whoever else has a Cricut device, Silhouette Cameo device, they are super handy for making stencils, so you don't have to cut them out by hand with a razor blade or anything. So this is cut, you probably can't tell, but this does have the exact same text that does. This is like stencil paper by a company called Vivid. I just bought it off Amazon. It's relatively inexpensive, and it is sticky but kind of light, so hopefully it doesn't pull any paint off. That's always the worry with this. It is the most satisfying part when you're doing graphics, pulling them off and watching the reveal, but it's also absolutely terrifying because it could come up and then it's a bad day. How we did that, here is a piece of transfer paper. This is actually the same exact piece that I used for this side. It's gonna get pulled off, so it doesn't really matter. You can reuse it, but we're gonna put that down on here, put it on the front. Now, unlike a lot of other things that you would do with a Cricut, like if you're making a t-shirt or something, you do not have to reverse the text. You don't have to mirror the text. Now we're gonna come over. First of all, we're gonna pull the sticky part off of our blue stencil vinyl. Careful not to pull any of the actual blue stencil up with it. And then from here, we're gonna pull our letters out. Now the reason you put the transfer tape on is when you pull the letters off, you're gonna leave your pieces that go in the middle. Really, there's only two of them on this one, but the piece that goes inside the 4 and the piece that goes inside the 9, rather than you having to try to stick those in and get them perfect, they're gonna stay on the transfer tape and you're gonna be able to put the whole thing down as a unit. So just take whatever, doesn't matter. Just something sharp. And let's pull all of these letters out. There's the C and there's the I, but you get the point. We're gonna pull the 429 off, and then we're gonna stick this to the other side. Now I know my lighting over here is not great. I apologize for that, and it's getting dark outside, which makes it worse. But good kind of pro tip here, when you're putting stuff like this down, you can't see both sides at the same time, so if they're a little crooked, it's not that big a deal. Don't sweat it too hard, but use the tape that I put down initially, like this piece of tape that went all the way across as my alignment all the way across. And then I've also got this piece of yellow on the bottom. You can see kind of leaking out here. I just put that along the line with the cowl, and then I aligned the bottom of this, which has grid lines to it. I aligned the bottom of that on the tape. So when we go to the other side, even though it's reversed, we're kind of gonna be able to put it in the same place, and we make sure it's straight to the bottom based on this. Now, this is still gonna probably look a touch crooked when we take it off because this widens out a little bit. So it's your distance between the top and the hood here is narrower than it is back here. Not by a ton, but by, it's like 5.5 here and like 6.5, 7 here. So I just chose to align it with the bottom, and we're gonna live with that decision. I'm gonna stick this guy to the other side, and then we'll start laying down some of the adhesive for our gold leaf. All right, round one here. So we've got our loose leaf. I've got a cotton ball and a brush, that's really all we have. I'm not particularly good at this, but I've done it a couple of times now. It's kind of fun, actually. This stuff is super fragile, so when you lay it down, just make sure you're laying it down, because if you pull it all, it is going to tear. Now we're just going to do that to the other side, a little more glue, and go around again. All right, moment of truth. Please, no paint come up. Now, I might have to take my gloves off for this. I am a little bit concerned about getting up that middle area, like in the 4 and the 9. We're going to try to be very gentle with that. We don't want to scratch our actual gold leaf. I might go get a different tool that has an even sharper edge than this to try to get those up. Let's try to pull this off first and see how that goes. Again, this should release just fine. It's still always concerning pulling up tape. Please no paint come up. Paint and gold leaf, please stay down. We did tear a little bit there. That is unfortunate. Well, there you go. That's not terrible. This, honestly, our first pull was the worst. This eye right here got ragged. Got a little ragged right there. But overall, not bad. I was considering whether or not I was going to outline these. Now I think with that getting torn, the C and the I looking a little rough, we probably will outline them. Now we're going to burnish it up with a cotton ball, knock off any loose pieces, try to flatten it down a little bit. Now you could also, if you don't have a turning tool and you still want to turn it, you can turn it with a cotton ball. It's not as vibrant of an effect, at least in the time I tried it. Maybe get it in the hands of an expert and it would be the same. But for me, it wasn't as vibrant. So I am going to try my little engine turning tool here and see how that goes. That looks pretty cool just by itself though. All right, real quick, homemade engine turning tool here. You can buy these from companies like Limeline, etc. And I buy a lot of stuff from companies like that, it's specifically Limeline, but I just think they charge too much for their little engine turning tool. This is a rotary bit for like a die grinder that I bought at Harbor Freight. You would put a little piece of sandpaper in the end of it. It actually does have a little piece of sandpaper in the end of it that I've just glued my piece of sandpaper onto the end of it. So what I believe those engine turn tools that you buy are is just something like this, and then a piece of foam backed like Trizact 5000 grit sandpaper. This is off brand rather than being 3M Trizact. This is 5000 grit by Bemotal. I don't know, I'll put a link in the description. And then I cut it out in the shape of a circle, and boom, there you go. There's a tool. I've never used this before. We're gonna try it out right here on my 429 emblem, and hopefully it works. Put my light here so hopefully I can see it as I'm doing it a little bit better. You don't need to put a lot of pressure here. I've actually kind of found just with messing around with this, and again, I'm not a professional. I've only done this a couple of times, and this is the first time I've ever used this little homemade tool. But I actually have a cooler effect, I feel like, with light pressure. That's cool. You see, I probably got a little bit too heavy on the 4, whereas the 2, I was lighter on, and it gives it more of a diamond back appearance. Okay, so we're gonna try one more thing. I have a number 4 lettering quill here, and this is just some more of my sizing glue mixed up. I've never done this before. I've seen a few people do it on like TikTok, but never really seen a tutorial. So I'm just kind of guessing at how they actually do it. But I am going to outline my letters here, especially because I've got a little tear over there. I'm gonna outline my letters here in this sizing glue. We're gonna let it dry good. We're gonna give it 2 or 3 coats, and then we're gonna shake some metal flake into it. This is pink. I'm kind of debating between pink and green. They're both complementary colors for this, and they'll both pop real hard. We'll probably go with green just because of the toxic waste connotation there. So probably go with green, but that's the plan. Is this gonna work? Great fucking question. I don't know, but we're gonna try it. It has been a long time since I've practiced with my lettering stuff, and I wasn't particularly good at it to begin with. So this is possibly a terrible idea. Again, I apologize. I know the lighting over here is trash after dark. I really need to get those octagon lights that I have over there in that corner. But else, notice that I taped this to this board because I really don't want that to flip over on me. That would be a problem. Alright, here we go. I have absolutely no clue if this is going to work or not. What I'm going to try to do is sprinkle some of my green flake down into this and then just kind of brush it off into there, and hopefully it sticks. Let's try for a cool reveal, and then I'm going to bed. Please work. I legit have no idea if this is going to work or not. Oh, that looks pretty cool. We got a little bit up here. Oh, that just wiped off too. That's really cool. I'm really happy with that. That's really cool. My back is absolutely killing me from bending over this for so long, but it was worth it. That came out awesome. There's one spot over here in the 9 where I must have got a little bit of glue on the numbered. So I've got some spare flakes in there, but I think we can probably use, you know, something light, you know, some mineral spirits or something, and try to get rid of that water-based glue. We'll just be really careful with it so it doesn't run. Because remember, this is metal, so it's going to be fairly tough. It's just aluminum foil, basically, but colored. Oh, that's a huge win. I'm going to bed. I'll see you guys later. Do a little bit of voiceover because we entered the phase of the program where I forgot to turn my microphone on. I actually got a new microphone at the end of this video because I got tired of this happening. So what we're doing here is deleting on some of this awesomely 90s pinstriping. Not all of it, but just the stuff that I feel like would disqualify us because it doesn't look correct for a 60s gasser. You know, somebody really cared about this car, probably circa like 1995, because it looks like they just read every cool thing at the time in Hot Rod magazine and did it. From this pinstriping to the shaved door handles. This thing even had a Bad Boy Club sticker on the back. It's almost a time capsule, really. Now, some people think we peaked as a society in the 90s, and I don't even necessarily disagree with that, but car culture in the 90s was not part of that peak. Luckily, this is just on top. They didn't clear over this pinstriping, so we're just kind of gently sanding it off. I'm going 800 grit, 1200 grit, 2000 grit, 3000 grit Trizact, and a little bit of polish. It all came right up.
And now we're starting to put the name down the side. This is that same vivid stencil paper you saw me using earlier when we were doing the 429 on the hood. Cut it on my Cricut, and then we are going to add some flake to it. So again, pretty much the same thing you saw me do earlier. We're using only a black base coat. I'm using real base coat this time instead of that Eastwood single stage product. We're using a mix of green and pink flake. I'm using the pink to kind of match the pinstriping down the side. This ended up being really hard to see. I probably should have used a lighter color flake, or more importantly, maybe use a silver base instead of a black base, but I didn't have any. So you got me using an extra light here, because even I was having a hard time seeing it as I was spraying it. Now, most of the time, I would tell you, I think people, especially in YouTube world, reach too hard in trying to name their cars. But hey, this is a gasser. It's gotta have a name. And I've had the name Toxic Relationship picked out for this thing for a long time, because all I do is provide it loving attention, and really all it does is spend my money.
New wheels are in. I picked these back up from the tire shop yesterday, and they are ready to go on to complete the look. Now these are a 185 70/15. There's not a lot of option in this tire size, at least not that was any kind of speed rated. There went a perfectly good rattle can. Still good. Anyway, like I was saying, these are a 185 70/15. This particular flavor of tire is a Grip Max Grip Classic GT. It's an affordable tire. What I liked about it though is that, number one, it doesn't get too crazy with the graphics like a lot of newer tires do. But more importantly, this is 8 speed rated, so it's up to 130 miles an hour. A lot of the like kind of Coker branded tires that might have been roughly the same size, you know, a lot of those are only rated for like 103, 105 miles an hour, which just would not do it for us on the drag strip. As you can see, I've got super long studs in this. So we've got open lug nuts all the way around, which is kind of NHRA proper anyway, because then the tech inspector can easily see how much you have sticking through. Zap these bad boys on. Now, these, kind of importantly, at least for me, these, while they're the same width as the other tires, they're both the 185 series. These are a 70, whereas the other ones were 60s. So these are about an inch taller. And the other ones just looked really dinky. I'm just hoping that these will fill up the wheel well just a little bit more. The other ones looked really kind of ridiculously clown shoe sized. Getting a little bit of play there, and I'm trying to figure out if that's the tire or the wheel bearing. I'm not super putting these down with the Ugga Dugga because these are screw-in studs and I've had problems with them trying to back out. So I will take and put a torque wrench on these to give them a final tighten down, which you should be doing anyway. Those look so much cooler. Underrated part of this wheel swap that I'm thrilled about, I hate shank lug nuts. They make a lot of cool wheels with them. I own quite a few cars that have used these, but man, they're a pain in the ass. I'm so much happier to just be going to a normal Acorn lug nut with these new wheels. This, some of you are going to get, some of you won't, most of you are not going to. Some of you might say it doesn't belong on a gasser. I don't care. It's my car. And spooky stuff goes with the 50s and 60s in my opinion. If you get it, shout it out because it's fun. Low effort, white spray paint. This is one of the fancy ones with knobs. I've never tried this before, but it has a low output level. I was originally going to buy some spray paint and put it in my airbrush, but I'm lazy and I'm hoping that the low output version works on this. Mostly just so I don't have to mask off a bunch. That's why I would use the airbrush, because you can be real tight. It atomizes really well and it dries really fast. Much faster than spray paint would sprayed out of a normal can, but we're going to see what this low output thing's all about. And then I probably will, just as a tester, outline just this part of it. We'll see how engaged I'm feeling. It's also really hot. This is July 2026 and the entire United States is in a heat wave. Those of you who lived through it will remember. It sucked. I had a long weekend and I got almost nothing accomplished just because it was brutal. Here we go. We're gonna have to do a couple coats of that and we'll pull the tape off, but for reference, these aren't all that low output, so don't go thinking you're gonna buy one of these and it's gonna come out like an airbrush. I still ended up getting overspray on the trunk lid that I'm gonna have to wipe off real quick. I apologize for the fan running in the background the whole time. It's hot. I don't know what to tell you. Color is Monster Green by Alpha Enamel, which, considering subject matter, I feel like is appropriate. This is enamel, so it's one coat. You don't have to clear it. It's going to dry glossy. That's another reason I use spray paint, because it's gloss spray paint. This is just me messing around. I wanted to be able to wipe it off easy or sand it off easy if I thought it sucked. And hey, we can see that my skills with the brush are going to need some refinement before I tackle those straight letters on the side. But for this, it actually worked out pretty cool. When you're working with kind of misfitsy looking letters anyway, it worked out kind of exactly how I was hoping. It looks cool. At least I think so. Maybe you don't. That's fine. I don't care. Again, it's just enamel. And again, I'm probably going to sand off everything except for the hood at some point anyway and paint the thing either black or green. So whatever. It gets the point across. Again, I'd love to play the song for you while I was doing this. I'm sure they would sue me. Well, there you have it. Is it a high dollar chip foos level paint job? Absolutely not. Does it have some orange peel in it? Also absolutely yes. Which, by the way, I kind of figured out why I did that. Most of that orange peel is in the black base, or the single stage that we used in place of black base. I got lazy using stuff I had laying around and used a fast reducer and I think a fast hardener in that too. And it was about 90 degrees outside that day. It was actually hotter than I realized initially. Too fast of a reducer for your given temperature is like dead giveaway for orange peel. You're probably budget minded if you're watching this channel, like to use stuff you have laying around. Just know that it can come back to bite you sometimes. I don't care. You can't really notice the orange peel unless you're right up on it, and we can still do some sanding if we wanted to try to get that out even further. Similarly, these came out. These look awesome in the sun, especially if you're right up close to them. I don't know how they're going to come on camera, how bright they're going to be, but they look really cool out here in the sun. But if you're not in the sun, they are kind of hard to see. So I am going to have to outline this. As you saw me messing around with my pinstriping brush on the back of the car, definitely need to put in some work before I start messing with this. Moral of the story is, it looks much, much, much more like a traditional 60s gasser now. As we've talked about, a 66 is a little bit late in the period for gassers, but hey, I didn't want the same one everybody else had. This is different. Same thing with the wheels. I don't have the kidney bean slot bags that everybody else runs. Nothing wrong with those. I like those. But this is just a little bit different. And I think the wheels especially, I think it all came out killer. Now, just like the hood, you get up close to them, you can see where all my tape lines aren't great. Who cares? This is one of those things where I'm really the don't let great be the enemy of good, and this is good. I'm super thrilled with this. Now this car still has a lot of work to be done before it can be ready for any kind of drag week. We need a cage, and it needs a Magnum to replace the stock T56 that's in it, and it needs a rear end that's more than stock, and honestly it just needs me to throw a whole bunch more money at it over time, which I have to make, and that takes time. And let's not dwell on the depressing. We got one thing left to do in this episode. Let's take it for a ride. Hey, I hope everybody had fun. Thanks for watching. I really hope that this gives you some of the confidence that you need, even if you don't know exactly what you're doing, because neither did I. You just get out there, you watch a couple YouTube tutorials, and you make it happen. Once again, I'm going to say don't let great be the enemy of good. Just make it good enough for you. As always, please like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.